everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Tiburon Town Council Candidate Forum tonight. My name is Francisco Martinez. I am the Tiburon Beat Reporter for the ARC, and I'd like to thank our co-host, the League of Women Voters of Marin, for moderating tonight's event, and the two candidates, Stefanie Cho and NIkfar, for the participation tonight. The ARC, which is celebrating its 50th year serving the community, and the League do not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. A strictly nonpartisan organization, the League of Women Voters follows a mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of their vision of a democracy where every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. For complete and ongoing news coverage on this election, please visit the arcnewspaper.com/election2023 and find the ARC on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Nextdoor.com. And now I hand you over to our moderator for this evening, League member Lori Nardone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Yes. Great. Hello and welcome to this candidate forum presented by the ARC newspaper and the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I am Lori Nardone of the Marin League, and I'll be your moderator, and we have Elaine Biagini here, who is our timekeeper. So the two candidates here with us tonight are running to fill the vacant seat on the Tiburon Town Council, and the elected council member will serve until November 2024. The candidates are Stefanie Cho and NIkfar. And before we get started, let's quickly review a few ground rules. So first, can you please silence your cell phones and any other noise-making device that you might be wearing? New things get added all the time. Because the League is a strictly nonpartisan organization and follows Federal Election Commission rules for candidate forums, no campaign materials, including buttons, signs, brochures, t-shirts, etc., are permitted in this room. Available on the ARC's website at thearcnewspaper.com and on the League of Women Voters website at marinlwv.org. Please note the signs posted on the walls of this room. Your presence here tonight constitutes permission to use your likeness on the air. We encourage audience members to submit questions on the index cards that were provided to you. Just raise your hand and Kevin Hessel, or his intern, whose name I do not know, so sorry, will collect your card. Caroline Kirsch. Okay, now you're on. Each candidate has been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. So we'll begin with Stefanie Cho now. And we need to push that button.
Hello and welcome. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and thank you to the ARC and thank you all for being here. I'm running for the town council seat because I think the town has reached a really pivotal moment. We have to work through the main parts of the housing element. Each day I think we're expecting to have some sort of report about compliance. I don't know that it's been received even as of today. We need to enact another draft if that is rejected. And this is complicated by the newly filed lawsuit by the Committee for Tiburon, which is what they renamed themselves as of July 7th. There is still a zoning decision to be made in the ADU component of a possible plan to consider. I want residents to know that I'm fully committed to serving them because I have the time. I also have focus, passion, and desire to do all the necessary work and to be here behind the dais for all the meetings. And this also includes my desire to read the town budget and to understand it and to promote adherence to it, while also advocating for return to local control for state housing measures. And in order to do that, it could entail lobbying by going to Sacramento with like-minded people. It could require legislating by supporting the group called Our Neighborhood Voices. And it might also require investigating litigation if constituents would support that.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. And now we'll go to Isaac.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marin. Thank you to the ARC for bringing this back, this great event back. Thank you to everyone who's here tonight and those that are tuning in the live stream. Many of you know me. I've been a part of this community in Tiburon for nearly 12 years. My family moved here in 2012. We were drawn to Tiburon's beautiful open space, excellent schools, and safe community. My 3 children started at Reed School in kindergarten, and now one is a junior at Redwood, one's a freshman at Redwood, and one's in 8th grade. I ride the ferry into the city, ride the 219 bus home most nights. I've coached over 40 youth teams in Marin County, including Marin County schools at Del Mar for basketball and volleyball. CYO champions, Tiburon Little League All-Star champions in 2021. I've participated in numerous beach cleanups at the food bank in Marin Food Bank, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts. I've been the volunteer director of St. Hilary CYO Sports for 7 years, providing basketball and volleyball programs to kids in our community. I've served as the chair and I'm the current vice chair of Tiburon Parks Open Space and Trails Commission for 7 years, where I led the removal of pesticides that were used in our parks, brought the new McKegney Green online. I'm currently leading the Tiburon Parks Master Plan, which I hope all of you will participate in the survey. I hope to also improve pedestrian safety as a part of that process. I'm running to be your voice on the Tiburon Town Council. I believe in proactive engagement with our community, I'll continue to listen and be proactive and hope to earn your support and win your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now for the questions. The candidates will each have 90 seconds to answer. To be fair, I will alternate who responds first to each question. So we're going to begin with Isaac. And the first question is, what are the top 3, and you're not going to repeat any of them, what are the top 3 priorities or goals that you would want to address if you're elected to town council?
Okay. So I think, there are probably more than 3, but I would say the top 3 are, one, continuing to the great work I think that the town council has done around housing and making sure that we bring that across the goal line. The second one is preserving open space and improving our parks. I think pedestrian safety is a big issue in town. I think that improving the already great facilities and parks that we have in town is a really important issue. And I think the third piece is kind of quality of life and continuing to improve that, where we need to bring back family-friendly events in town. I think we also need to help reduce traffic by directly engaging with Caltrans to make that commute a little better.
And Stefanie, what are your 3 top priorities and goals?
So the top 3 goals, as I've already started to outline, include the completion appropriately of the housing element. It can be very problematic when neighbors are pitted against each other, which is the current case. So I'm hoping that we can all work together and understand that the plan that the town council has implemented is what they were required to do. And so they have served us well in that regard, and we have very talented members that have gotten us to this point. And so we need to work together, and if the ADU plan is one that will help us get the compliance report we need, then so be it. But I want to support the best way to move forward and make sure that we're doing it together with the support of the full community. Maintaining open space, obviously, is something always top of mind. I've been very fortunate to tour the Martha property twice. It's breathtaking. And we were as high as the fog and some of the hawks that were flying. It was really incredible. So I hope we close the gap when we get our final funding. And we need to promote a disaster preparedness plan that also allows people who are aging in place to safely be in their homes and evacuate if necessary.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have lots of questions you guys will be able to elaborate on. Okay, so for our next question, Stefanie will go first. This is a long one. In the May 31st, 2023 issue of the ARC, there was substantial coverage of the Tiburon Police Department Citizens Advisory Panel. True citizen oversight is identified among the 6 pillars in the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policy. Police Chief Ryan Monahan and now Chief Michelle Jean have said that an oversight committee is unnecessary. What are your views on this issue?
Well, I believe that the Police Advisory Committee that is, if it is implemented, can work in companion with all of the other town activities, such as the DITF effort with their ad hoc committee to reach out and formalize the best plan so that we can all be on the same page and give advice as appropriate and as necessary, and remind everyone that our behavior needs to be held to a higher standard. And I think that we can do that, and I think it can be implemented effectively. And I think that further discourse is needed if there is pushback from any particular agency. And that necessary conversation is just an ongoing part of local government.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat that question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, in the May 31st issue of the ARC, there was substantial coverage of the Tiburon Police Department Citizens Advisory Panel. True citizen oversight is identified among the 6 pillars in the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policy. Police Chief Brian Monahan and now Chief Michelle Jean have said that an oversight committee is unnecessary. What are your views on this issue?
Yes, so I think, sort of the root of the question is, are we making progress against some of the needs that brought about this Citizen Advisory Committee? And I think the answer is yes. And I think that Tiburon Police Department is doing everything they can to improve, and I think be the police force that we need in this community. I think that there is definitely a case to be made for oversight in a lot of areas, and I think we don't necessarily need to create something that's going to get in the way of providing for public safety, but at the same time, I think it's really important that our voice is heard through the community, and that adjustments that are needed can be made.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for our next question, this one will start with you, Isaac. Okay. Oh, and we have a comment on this one as well that came in. So, oh boy. Residents have variously suggested suing the state over housing or attempting to explain locally unique conditions. If the state rejects those and forces compliance under existing rules, where do you think housing should be developed in Tiburon? And the comment that follows that, which was sent in, was, no one wants high-density housing or ADUs built next door to their home. Which one of you is going to have the fortitude to stand up to the state and or sue so our pristine city will not be destroyed? To you, Isaac.
Wow, that was quite a question.
Yeah.
So I think for the housing issue, I think taking a look at how we've addressed this in the past, and ADUs have been a component of this in the past, and I think zoning for ADUs or allowing for ADUs doesn't mean they're getting built, but it is I think a critical component in terms of how we look at growth in Tiburon. Just sort of waving a magic wand and trying to make high density housing show up in off Paradise or downtown with a cove, you're gonna have problems with any of those, because having sustainable growth and growth that has services attached to it for any high density housing is going to be incredibly difficult in this town. We already know, those of us that go up and down the boulevard, how much traffic there is. We know there's only one place you can get prescriptions filled in Tiburon. And so I think it's incredibly important, no matter how how we look at what our opinion is of where the housing should go. I think we need to make sure that it's spread out consistently, and that we are keeping an eye on sustainable growth for Tiburon, and making sure that we're not just sort of parking massive numbers of units in one of the open spaces that we've got in town.
Okay, thank you. Do you need me to repeat that question?
Well, the second part's easy. The first part was if the state rejects the plan.
If the state rejects the, assuming the state or not, attempting to explain locally, if the state rejects explaining this is different here, and forces compliance under existing rules, where do you think housing should be developed in Tiburon?
Well, that's sort of a tough question. I mean, just by the way it's worded, because if the current plan that's under review is rejected, then town council has to come back and review what's been rejected and address those points. So it's not like we're starting all over. It's
I'm just
so.
asking
So if the current plan gets rejected tomorrow, then perhaps we have the avenue we need to thoroughly pursue the ADU option. And because the town has the appropriate information on the website and everyone can participate and indicate whether or not they're willing to build an ADU, then perhaps we can gather enough information to convince the state that that is the appropriate next step to take, and they will accept that housing plan in the future. But we don't have unlimited time because we have the builder's remedy breathing down our neck. I already stated that I was the candidate that was willing to pursue litigation if that's where the town felt we were best directed. And I'm happy to do that and investigate what's required to do that. I'm not saying I'm running out of the gate hoping to sue everybody. I just believe that we have a lot of options and we should be willing to look at litigation as a final last best effort to regain control at a local level.
Thank you. Okay, don't turn that off because you're next. Okay. Thank you. There is concern that the Trust for Public Land will not be able to close the funding gap, and is considering asking the town of Tiburon for additional contributions to cover the option payment that's due in January 2024. The town has already paid a non-refundable deposit of $250,000. What are your views on the potential additional funding requests for the purchase of the Martha property?
I believe that there has been such huge support for the Martha property that if we open this up to constituents, that there would still be continued support, because I think Measure M passed with about an 80% raise. And our willingness to pay for it through our property taxes, as well as for people who have already submitted smaller donations, shows that it's what we want to have in place, and it's what is the most beneficial for this town, and we want to preserve, the amazing plants and little species and the little red-legged frog and everything that exists there. So I believe that all the information isn't really known to me at this time. It's a general statement that there could be a situation, but I believe that based on the support that's already been exhibited, that we will hopefully move forward. And I fully support any and everything to keep the Martha property as open space so that it's beautiful for everyone to enjoy.
Okay, Isaac?
So I think we've got to look at any and all avenues to pay for this. I think going right to the town budget, I think that's potentially one option, and I support unequivocally acquiring supporter of open space, and I'm on the Parks, Open Space and Trails Commission. So I'm putting my time where my mouth is, I guess. I think there are many avenues. If you look at how we got the library finished, if you look at how McKegney got finished, if you look at how many of the projects in Tiburon that I've seen and been involved in this town have gotten finished, I think there are a lot of different avenues for how we can raise the funds for that. And I think the people in Tiburon and I think also in surrounding communities are big believers in the need for open space. So I think we'll be able to find another solution if the trust is unable to come up with funds.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to try with the things that were submitted, I'm going to try to combine them because some of them overlap with some of the questions we have here. So if you don't hear your exact question, I'm going to try and incorporate it. Okay, so we're going to go to climate change next, and let's see, Isaac, you're first on this one. So climate change is real and will force us to make tough decisions. With acknowledgement that Tiburon has a climate action plan in place, what would your top priorities be in ensuring the town is on the forefront of combating climate change?
Yeah, so I think the big one, and by the way, I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club, and part of that is because of my commitment through this campaign to helping combat climate change. There are a couple of things. One is separated into a couple of categories. Is what can we do as a town? And I think electrification is one of the big things that we can do as a town to make sure that we're doing our part. I think also looking at different recycling programs. That's another thing that we can do in this town. Soft plastics are a readily recyclable piece of material that we're not currently doing. So there are a lot of things we can do as a town to help combat climate change. Then the second thing is how do we prepare as a town for the effects. One of which we approved on post, which is improving Greenwood Cove Beach to help with the rising sea levels and wave energy, and to help decrease erosion. There are other efforts that we can do, I think, around that. And then the third one is, I think, thinking about safety in the event of some sort of a disaster. I think safety prevention and education are going to be a big piece that I would add on as a third item. So I know I'm out of time, so
He's out of time, but
Yeah.
I'm going to break the rule. I'm going to add a question because it follows right on the heels of it, and I'll do this thing with Stefanie. And what would you do to regenerate neighborhood participation in disaster preparedness?
So we have in our neighborhood in Del Mar, we have a block captain, and I think having a neighborhood with an HOA or with an active community within that neighborhood is a big part of that. And if you look at the Reedlands, if you look at parts of Belvedere, I think where you have neighborhood engagement and you have neighbors who know each other and you have a block captain, you understand who to talk to in the event of an emergency. That's an incredibly powerful tool for disaster preparedness and for information sharing. I guess I shout out to Bill Brinkman and Colin Crawford in the Del Mar neighborhood for organizing all of our efforts. And I would say if your neighborhood doesn't have something like that, then maybe that's something that we as a town should be helping with and helping organize these neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. And we'll give you extra time to answer that too. So the first part of it was about climate change and that Tiburon has a climate action plan in place. And what would your top priorities be in ensuring the town is on the forefront of combating climate change? And then you can touch on neighborhood preparedness, if you would.
Well, clearly, based on where we are located, we could be victims of wildfire as well as flooding, and both of those should be addressed. Sea level rise the dangers from that are apparent just from using the Marin maps. And we have some low-lying properties that we need to be quite aware of and understand what the, eventual result will be by possibly the year 2050, if not sooner. When it comes to wildfire, we need to potentially look more at undergrounding more than we have done. There are many neighborhoods where that has been accomplished, but not all of them. And so it might be an excellent step to protect us. And in addition, for disaster preparedness, we need to have an overall plan for the town. And I think right now, individual neighborhood associations and homeowner associations all try to have their meetings and have their groups and get together. We have one Firewise community in this entire town, and I don't know that everyone even means or knows what that means in terms of accomplishing that. So instead of having a piecemeal approach, which is just hoping that everyone has a plan and we can get together, we need to have an overall plan. And so I found that the Belvedere website used this booklet, but they repurposed it. This is from the county of Marin, and this is from the late 90s, I think, because none of the phone numbers in here have area codes. So they took this, repurposed it, it's on the Belvedere website, we don't have it on the Tiburon website, but we need just a basic plan, and we need a handout. Because if people don't have power, they're not gonna go log into a website to see what they should do, or where they should go. But if we had a basic handout that had instructions for how to prepare and then what to do in the emergency hit, it would go a long way toward helping people, and especially the more elderly residents who probably would turn to a handout or a magnet or anything that they could access before they would look on a website. And so I think that climate change is going to change our world dramatically, and we need to be aware, but we need to have basic reasoning in place to keep everyone safe.
Thank you. I'm going to combine these next ones. I don't live in Tiburon, but I think these go together.
When you combine, does that mean I get them through this?
No, I think these are talking about the same thing. These are 90 seconds only, okay. And start with Stefanie. So, despite the success of the Yellow Bus Challenge, there are persistent and continued traffic delays on Tiburon Boulevard, which is owned by Caltrans. What do you think the town could do to improve traffic, if anything at all? And would you promote the 219 bus for more miles? And can the 219 bus or other alternatives you know of address the traffic backup in the morning and evening? So I think those are good. Traffic.
So I am aware of the Yellow Bus program, and I know that that committee has met twice this year, at least once, if not twice. And I know that that program is supported by selling passes as well as participation from the town, from the county. And promoting it makes a lot of sense, except that when parents have different times that they leave home and maybe the kids can't safely or easily get on that bus, they'll end up driving them to school. And it makes sense to me to try to get more people to coordinate and cooperate when it comes to either dropping kids off or picking them up or getting them to all their events. Because as a parent, I know that I spent my life in the car for what seemed like a decade. And I was really grateful when my own kids could drive. And I don't know that there's a lot that we can do when it comes to traffic on Tiburon Boulevard, except for getting more outreach to the community and suggesting more ways of cooperation. So possibly there can be groups that are escorted from the schools to the ranch for after-school programs. And any ways that we can think of to keep people out of cars and walking or biking safely is what we should promote. But I know we can't really widen Tiburon Boulevard, and we don't have a lot of other choices.
Thanks. Do you want to take that, or do you want me to read it?
Let's repeat the question.
Okay, so is it twofer? Despite the success of the Yellow Bus Challenge, there are persistent and continued traffic delays on Tiburon Boulevard, which is owned by Caltrans. What do you think the town could do to improve traffic, if anything at all? And in relation to the 219 bus, would you promote it for more miles? I think that means go longer. And can the bus or other alternatives you know of address the traffic backup in both the morning and the evening?
Okay, so I'll sort of give you a three-part answer here. So part one, to address the yellow bus challenge. I don't know if you know this, but we're fortunate enough to have some of the founders of the yellow bus program in the room with us. Jack and Sarah really revived the program and got it going. And a big part of that for how it was promoted and how it caught on was that actually town council paid for a portion of the cost of the yellow bus program, and that helped to reduce the cost and make it more appetizing, I think, to a lot of parents in Tiburon. The routes are incredible. They cover just about every square inch of this town. I'm a former customer. I live across the street from Del Mar now, so my kids don't need to take a bus to Del Mar. But when we lived in different neighborhoods, and it's just an incredible program, and I plug it. I think it's amazing. It takes cars off the road. That's part one. Part two is that public transit is headed for a fiscal cliff, and I think the 219 bus, I take it, I enjoy it. It's pretty empty. It's wonderful. There's great AC on there, but it's just not used much, and it's actually being reduced. And I think Town Council member Alice Fredericks is our representative on Marin County Transit, and she knows this as well as anyone does. I guess I would say the third thing around traffic mitigation is that what we've got to do is we've got to modernize, and we've got to time the lights as other towns like Tiburon have done, and we've got to really get traffic moving out of town in one big chunk. Thank you.
Okay, all right, we'll start with, well, that doesn't seem right, 6. Okay, we start with Isaac on this one. Okay, every council member except Alice Fredericks replaced someone who didn't complete the terms to which they were elected. Serving on the Tiburon Town Council is more than just attending council meetings. What is your capacity, and more importantly, your commitment to attending outside events, outside of board meetings, especially committees or council meetings that might occur during business or school hours? That's to you first.
Yeah, so I think I've proven my ability. I'm on multiple boards now. I'm the athletic director at CYO. I'm on the Parks Board. I volunteer for a variety of different things, and I put my time where I think it's important. I think it's. Can we go back to what was the beginning of that question again?
Well, so the beginning was they didn't serve their full term, and so.
So we're replacing Noah Griffin, who had to resign due to family commitments. And by the way, Noah Griffin has endorsed me as a candidate. And so I think I don't think we should be sort of calling that into question, or why town council members resign. But I can tell you that I fully intend to fulfill the rest of this term, and I intend to run again next year in the fall. I ran last fall, and I think I got the most votes of anyone who's ever lost in Tiburon. And I went up for the appointment, which I don't think we can say for my esteemed opponent. And so I think I've been here. I'm going to be here. I've been part of the community, and I will continue to be part of this community. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay. Okay, do you need me to repeat it, or you got it?
Well, I think
Yeah.
the point of the question was how much time do you have?
Or will you commit to, well, this says, again, I'm looking at every council member except Alice left the council before their term was over. So it's more, I think, about, are we going to do something? That's how I read the question, but I could have them.
I think for this particular seat, they're referring to this seat because the first person resigned because he moved his family out of Tiburon. and then there was a special election, Noah won the seat, and then he stepped aside, and now we're running again, and there's a partial term left. So I interpret the question to mean just this seat. And so I'm running because I do have the time, and I do not have a full-time job. So I can commit to many, many hours to focus on this, to learn anything else I need to learn, and to attend all meetings, and if I'm assigned committee assignments, I will take them. And in addition to that, I will also want to be held accountable. If I'm not at a meeting, I will say why, but I fully intend to sit for all meetings and to be present. And I will also meet with constituents on a regular basis. The way to do that is to be determined, whether it's in person, but there are no office spaces in town where we ask. So maybe at the library, because it's such a lovely community space, we could set up something on a regular basis. And so I will be available face to face, and I will spend all my time on this job.
Thank you. Okay, so Stefanie, you first for answering the next one. Access to the Middle Ridge open space is restricted by a locked gate at the end of Hacienda Drive, as residents in the area claim part of the drive is private. For over 13 years, this issue has been unresolved. The development of the Martha property was to include access to the open space area, but there is no momentum. What are your views to improve access to the various open space areas throughout Tiburon and to prevent inappropriate restrictions to public access?
Can you read the first part of that?
Access to the Middle Ridge open space is restricted by a locked gate at the end of Hacienda Drive, as residents in the area claim part of the drive is private. For over 13 years, the issue has been unresolved. And the development of the Martha property was to include access to the open space area, but there is no momentum. So, yeah, what are your views about that, to improve access to the various open space areas?
Well, I will admit, I don't know anything about this particular locked gate, and anyone who needs to find out more information is certainly going to investigate, and I will do everything I can to understand about that particular problem. The Martha property is not open at the moment for good reason, although I think a lot of people still access it anyway, even outside of invited times and appropriate tours. But when it comes to the use of open space, I've enjoyed going up to every other area that we have. And I've never personally had a problem, and I've never had anyone ask me about it, or I've never had anyone bring this up before. So if there's a particular issue with a particular place, there has to be a reason, and if it's a private road, that's very problematic. I myself live on a private road, and sometimes I would like to close it, to tell you the honest truth. But at the same time, we have to work with the town, and so the town manager and all the members of town council certainly must have an understanding of what this situation entails, and would be able to explain it to me so that I can understand it more fully and take a position.
So, so I'm very familiar with the gate on Hacienda. That is there, and there's actually a settlement with the town that makes that gate possible. The town settled on that, and there's an additional deal to make to create a path with access to that open space that's a part of a development parcel that is on the other side of the road. So if that development happens, then there is an agreement with the town to put a path that connects to the middle ridge of the open space. The middle ridge of the open space is accessible via Avenida Mira Flores. So if you're interested in accessing that and the hippie tree and all the other great things on the middle ridge and walking down to the Martha property, which is a great hike, you can go up to the top of Avenida Mira Flores. What was the second part of the question?
What are your views to improve access?
Yeah, so on posts, we've done this many times where we where we actually do something called steps and lanes, and we've done an entire series on what every set of steps and every single lane and every way to access every park and open space in this town. So I encourage you to go back and look at previous post meetings where we cataloged every way to access open space in this town, and I'm sure we'll do it again. But yeah, I think if there are any open spaces that we don't have access to, we'll be sure to hear it on post and make sure everyone's got access to it.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see, you're the first to answer. Okay. All right, I'll go. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, I'll launch into this one and then I can review those. Okay, so the town council commissioned independent consultants to look at broadband access on the Tiburon Peninsula, spending around $100,000. Do you believe this is a good use of town funds? And if so, what practical solutions do you expect to result from this investigation?
So I, like many people in Tiburon, there's only one broadband provider that can service the Tiburon Peninsula, which is Comcast. And so I think what town council is doing is investigating the ability to bring in a second provider, a third provider, or provide fiber optic service for the whole town, which I think, internet connectivity may not have been a big issue 30 years ago, but it's a massive issue now. And I think it's an issue of equity. It's an issue for all ages. I think it spans ages, and I think my hope is that the outcome of this is that we're able to find a solution to providing reliable broadband and connectivity for the entire Tiburon Peninsula.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
So this is an important initiative, and I remember Holly Deere talking about this when she was mayor, because she would have some meetings with constituents, and she was trying to explain what her positions were and what she believed in and what she wanted to put her energy behind. I did review the budget that is currently preliminary for 23-24, and the broadband project phase 1 still has unexpended funds, so money can be spent there. Although for the strategic plan that's been completed, those monies have been spent. And, well, actually, there are a couple of strategic plans, but there is a phase where we still have money and that we can still properly implement what is necessary in order to improve service in town.
Thank you. Okay, there's a couple of questions. I'm just gonna combine them. So, the question is, how much experience do you have with solving issues like those facing Tiburon? For example, managing traffic, fulfilling the housing element, making DEI part of town values, managing open space, and I'm going to combine that with what kind of lived experience do you bring and what challenges have you faced? Although this is not a job interview, but you're not too organized. So, how much experience have you had in facing the kind of issues that face Tiburon right now? So, Stephanie, you're the first one to address that.
So,
And the examples they gave were managing traffic, fulfilling the housing element, making DEI part of town values, managing open space.
well, all of these elements are important, but anyone who's had their own business and been client-facing for a decade also has similar challenges where you have to learn how to listen, you have to learn how to meet people in their frustrations and guide them when necessary. So in particular, I feel that for the housing element, I've been studying that long before I came to Tiburon. And I understand what the impacts are and the way that the state laws have been changing ever since 2017. And I know what's coming out, what has come out of Sacramento, and I can name particular bills, but I don't know that you're interested in that. And I also know what's headed our way and what pending legislation is that no one's really talking about, but will also impact us in future years. When it comes to working with open space, we have committees that do that expertly, and we just need to continue to raise the funds. When it comes to traffic, I already suggested that we needed to be cooperative and work with each other and encourage with public service announcements, ways that we can improve and be better. So I think that running a town is very similar to running a business, except what's most important is that all the constituents are very understood and supported and know that their comments are always welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Isaac, how much experience do you have with solving issues like those facing Tiburon? For example, managing traffic, fulfilling the housing element, making DEI part of town values, managing open space, and what kind of life experience do you bring?
So I guess I'll start with the life experience. I think being a business owner and working in technology for well over 20 years, I can tell you that what I didn't know is that it is nothing like, and being client focused is nothing like working in government at all. And I think anyone who's done work in government can tell you that the business world is nothing like the government world. And I think you've got to have an incredible, people that do this for a living, the town staff, folks like that. I applaud what they do. I think public service is one of the most challenging things that I've ever done in my life, and I don't think anything I did in my 20-plus year career made me ready for this. I think the past 7 years in serving the town of Tiburon and being someone that works on parks and open space and deals with different stakeholders and coming to compromise and working with people that are angry and sad and for a lot of different reasons to help them understand what's going on. I think that's really prepared me for working on town council. It's prepared me for serving the public. I think I do a coffee at Acre, which I encourage anyone to come to bi-weekly. I post about it on Nextdoor. I'm completely accessible, and I think being accessible is really important. Being transparent, being able to communicate with the folks at Tiburon. Please reach out to me. I make myself very, very accessible, and I'm happy to meet with you. And I guess I'm out of time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you are the first one for the next question.
All right.
Oh boy. So, how would you evaluate the performance of the Diversity Inclusion Task Force so far? Do you like the current structure, and what specific initiatives would you like to see them tackle during your term, first term?
Yeah, so I think what I would say is the DIT, the Diversity Inclusion Task Force. I think it's done a great job of I think starting to really bring folks from different backgrounds together. I think for me personally, I think what diversity, equity, and inclusion comes down to is learning to treat everyone with respect. I think it really comes down to that, and I think that's a core value that I have that I bring to to any offices that I'm representing. I think that work. I think in its essence, maybe it can never be fully completed, but I think there's been a massive amount of progress. I think there's been a massive amount of learning. I think all the community and cultural events that we've got here in town have been a great way to sort of bridge the gap and for people from different backgrounds to be able to understand each other and see where each other's coming from. And I think start to increase that, again, the ability for everyone to treat each other with respect and sort of see each other as equals. I think that's really at the core of what the DITF does, and I think they've made great progress, and look forward to hopefully being a part of it and continuing that work.
Okay, thank you. Can you repeat that?
We're supposed to evaluate the performance of DITF.
And if you have any initiatives you'd like to see them tackle.
So it is an important group. They have equal standing to town council. And so anyone who is on town council will be meeting with them on a very regular basis. They have made a lot of efforts to create wonderful events, and I actually wrote about that in the diversity piece that was published in the Marin IJ as a Marin Voice article, and I got some very good feedback from that. And I think that because they are now working on their strategic plan via the ad hoc committee that has been created, that involves 3 of the members along with Alice Fredericks, and they meet on a bi-weekly basis, that they will have a more complete vision, and they will be able to implement fully what they've been working toward since it was implemented in 2020.
Thank you. All right, I think these questions are connected, so you can tell me if I'm completely off. Okay, so the start is, what are your thoughts on development of the Paradise Drive site? And additionally, the tallest housing in Tiburon is 3 stories at the hotly contested point of Tiburon. And what measures do you suggest or support to keep new projects compatible and in character? And along those lines, I think, is, this is a long question, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but if the state accepts the draft housing element, or indicates it will, let's see here, or can you find a more suitable, lower density site for some or all of the high density units now identified for Paradise Drive?
What?
So I think all of those questions kind of tie towards what's being proposed for Paradise Drive. Or I may have that wrong, because I don't know what's proposed for
Well,
Paradise
no,
Drive.
it sounds like it, but I'm just trying to understand the whole question.
So
I'm
the
trying to
basic thing
understand
is
the whole question.
thoughts on development. So what are your thoughts on the development of the Paradise Drive site? And I guess do you have ideas on how you would keep things in character and not have some or all of the high density units that are being proposed there? I think is the question.
Well, the site H, which is what we're referring to when we say Paradise Drive, could hold up to 93 units, potentially based on zoning, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that many would be built or that any would be built. And the fact that it's in the plan is an attempt to satisfy the state that the amount of work necessary to provide appropriate sites that they will accept has been done. There are rules that have to be followed that the town has to follow when development occurs, and part of that is that we might not have a say at all, and that's why zoning and something called ODDS, the Objective Development and Design Standards, need to be implemented. So while the zoning has already been decided for the downtown area, it hasn't been decided for site H. It hasn't, the town hasn't made a move on that. And zoning and ODDS together, I believe, were going to be the decision that the council is going to make in the future.
Thank you. Isaac, do you want to tackle that one? Paradise Drive.
Can we go over that question? I feel like a lot of these are like two-parters.
So they're kind of but I think they are connected. So it's about what are your thoughts on development of the Paradise Drive site? And, do you have suggestions or ways to support new projects that are compatible and in character with what is the tallest building, 3 stories right now, that's out at Point Tiburon, which I think is maybe Paradise Drive. And I'm having trouble reading this. I'm having trouble reading some of the wording here, but it's what are your thoughts about high density units happening at the Paradise Drive?
Okay, so site H, it's actually 93 to 118 units, I believe, is what it's being zoned for. And if you're familiar with that site, it's very steep. It's incredibly steep, and so it's going to take a lot of work to develop that site. I don't know that it's appropriate for that many units. I also think that most recently it was designated for 4 units or 5 units only. So it's a little bit surprising that site was appropriate for that many units, or was designated for that many units. I think, sort of taking a step back and looking at the housing issue overall, local control of land use has to get restored. We have to restore that. I think we've got to do that through the right channels. and that housing needs to be provided where there's infrastructure, where there's services, and where there are housing sites. And right now, where there are housing sites are ADUs, I think for better or for worse. And so I think, services, if we're looking at low income sites, we need to have services for that so that any growth that we do have is sustainable. And I'll do everything I can to ensure whatever development that we have will mitigate traffic and make any growth that we do have sustainable for the town.
Thank you. Okay, back to you. This one's easier. What are your views regarding a comprehensive and strategic review of the area from Blackie's Pasture, McKegney, no, did I say that right? Sort of. The sanitary station and the old rail trail. While there are passive use covenants, do you have thoughts about what can be done to make the area more open to all aspects of recreation? And do you think that should happen? And I don't know if this goes along with it, but how about improving the walking paths while you're at it?
Yes, so this is why I got involved in town government in the first place. I have a passion for parks. I think I'm really excited by a lot of the innovation that's happened in the tunnel top parks in San Francisco. I think being able to bridge different ages and being able to have mixed use and mixed ages all in one place and being able to share and build community that way, I think is just an incredible use of space. Rezoning passive use, I don't think that's ever been on the table, and I'm not aware of how that could ever be on the table, because I think that's part of how Tiburon acquired the land in the first place. So I don't know that that's an answerable question, but I think in terms of cataloging and improving, this is what we do on Post. And I think we've looked at every park from Bel Air to Belveron to Blackie's to the old rail trail, all the way down to Shoreline. We're looking at the open spaces also, and we're trying to improve those. I think the biggest issue that we're trying to solve for is pedestrian safety. I think there are issues with e-bikes, there are issues with cyclists, there are issues with dogs, with kids, all those things sort of come together on this one path. And I think one of the areas that I'm hoping we get to is potentially splitting the path into a bicycle only and a pedestrian only path. We'll see how that goes. I think it depends on the folks, the town of Tiburon residents, to see if that's the direction we want to go in. But that could be one solution that I've looked at and supported to, again, improving bicycle safety on this amazing resource that we have in Tiburon.
Thank you. Do you need to review that? Okay. What are your views regarding a comprehensive and strategic review of the area from Blackie's Pasture, McKegney, Noah, the sanitary station, and the old rail trail? And while there are passive use covenants, do you have any thoughts about what can be done to make the area more open to all aspects of recreation? And do you even think that should happen? And what about making the paths safer and better?
Well, I do believe that there's always going to be a lot of interest in all recreational activities in Tiburon. Surprised no one's mentioned pickleball. But I think
It's on my list.
oh, great. However, I am familiar with the area under discussion, and I think that because the Parks Master Plan has been implemented, and according to our budget, once again, that project is underway and it's prepaid. And so we will have a full and complete understanding of what recommendations are so that that area can be appropriately developed. I do remember seeing some correspondence online on the Tiburon website where people were very upset with some of the ideas put forth, like even food trucks and so forth, and they wanted to stay quiet and unused. And I think, though, overall, there's an overwhelming desire to be active and just enjoy this incredible space. And I can talk about biking, but I think we're winding down on time. And so cycling and the speeds and something and so forth will probably come up in a future question.
Okay, here's a good one for you. Okay, here's one for you. You go first. One council member has declined to step aside, even as other residents seek leadership roles in shaping the community. If elected and re-elected, would you pledge to step down after 2 full terms?
You know, that's funny, that question came up in a prior debate because I listened to everything that I could find. And I do believe that because we don't have term limits, if someone has the interest and the passion and the love for Tiburon and they want to serve, they should do that. I think longevity gives us incredible knowledge that we wouldn't have otherwise. And something that was interesting came up for me when I was sitting at a council meeting in June, the June meeting where we went over the budget was discussed. And it turns out that if you live on a private road, you need to pay to fix it yourself, and nobody knows how to do that really. And so Alice Fredericks explained to the entire room that you can wait until major work is being done in your area and then get a quote, because if you need to do it all on your own, you have to worry about permits and quotes, and who do you even call? So I think that is something that is an example of how we need the deep knowledge that exists, and if someone wants to serve, they should. If I get reelected, I suppose then I have the support to continue as well. So I don't know that it's necessary to say I'm going to step down in any particular amount of time. And I think the voting residents would indicate what's necessary and appropriate.
Thank you. And do you want me to read it?
It sounds like it's just about the, is it term limits or something?
Well, if elected and re-elected, would you pledge to step down after 2 full terms? So I don't know if that's an arbitrary or if that's a Tiburon thing or whatever, but that's what the question is.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're volunteering and you're getting into public service, and the way that you do here in Tiburon, where it's all volunteer. So Parks is unpaid, Town Council is an unpaid volunteer position. You're doing it, you know, you're giving back to the community, and I think you know, the voters get to pick if you're elected or if you're not elected. I think, and there's the Town Council has also indicated that, you know, it's important to let the people in this town have a democratic process. I believe in that as well. I think continuity is really important. I've had many conversations with people in town at the coffee that I have at Acre bi-weekly. I've had some residents who've been here 40, 50 plus years, and there are amazing stories about the flood of 1982, which I had never heard about, and how we prepare for that kind of a disaster. So I think there's an incredible value in sort of learning from those that came before us, and but I think, you know, it's also important to make sure that you know, that the next generation has a path and has an opportunity forward. So I think if the people of Tiburon want me to only be here for a cycle or two, I'd happily step aside after a couple of those.
Okay, thank you. And back to you, Isaac. Okay, so more than 80% of police detentions in Tiburon are for traffic stops. Hispanics are 3 times more likely to be detained, and African Americans are 18 times more likely to be detained than whites by Tiburon police. This represents an increase since the police incident at Lima. Other cities are addressing this by limiting certain low-level traffic stops with no negative impact on crime. Should Tiburon better consider modern or alternative policing strategies to address biased stops?
So I'll answer this in a couple of different ways. One is, you know, to go back to my earlier point of treating everyone with respect. I think that we hire TPD, and we hire the best that we can, and we put our faith in them as public servants to do the right thing for our community and to keep us all safe. So I think I don't want to get into a mode of questioning that. I think you know, they're doing the best they can, and they're keeping us safe, which is great. You know, that said, I think, you know, you can see the color of my skin, and I've faced issues because of that, and I think, for anyone that's had unfair treatment based on the way you look, I think it's incredibly inflammatory. It's something that I have no tolerance for in my own life, and I don't think that anyone should. So I think it's kind of a balance of both of those. I think one is we've got to trust in the law enforcement that we've put in charge to make sure that we're safe. But also it's incredibly important that everyone treats each other with respect, and we educate each other on how to do that. So.
Okay, thank you. How about, so if I
I
don't
was
repeat
wondering
them
about the beginning, because you said 80% of police attentions
for traffic stops.
were based on,
So with the traffic stops, Hispanics are 3 times more likely to be detained, and African Americans are 18 times more likely to be detained by Tiburon police versus white people. So, and I think the key statement here is this represents an increase since the police incident at Lima.
so I guess my question would be, what time period did this data come from exactly? Because the transparency portal of the police website releases RIPA data, and so that information is available, but I was told by Chief Jean that it may not be updated currently because it comes from a third-party provider. So I'm not sure if that question is actually based on accurate information or not. But beyond that, I did ask her about traffic stops in general, and I met with her because I wanted to meet her face to face, and I wanted to ask her also for a ride along, and there's no member of town council that's ever taken her up on that offer, and so I'm planning to do that in August. But I asked her about these traffic stops, and she said that on most narrow roads in Tiburon, the police car is behind the driver, and they can't see who's driving. They're simply pulling over that driver for the perceived infraction. And that does make a lot of sense. And so I think that we need to obviously support the best policing that we can. And I think now that we're fully staffed with a diverse team of officers and support staff, that we need to work with what we have right now because we're very lucky.
Just one clarification, Post members have gone on ride-alongs with TPD.
Town council members, okay. Okay, all right, so Stefanie, this one's to you. Okay. ADUs, I know that's a popular topic here, are often rented to family and friends, exacerbating patterns of segregation and exclusion, and are usually for 1 to 2 people, not families. Actually, I'm gonna get to the question, let's see. So it's questioning the valid use of ADUs in achieving your multi-unit housing objectives. So it says the goals seem to have the opposite intent for addressing the housing crisis. Do you support the use of ADUs as a substitute for multifamily housing?
Well, I believe that ADUs are an important part of an overall housing plan, and we have a large number of people in this town who are claiming that it's the solution and the only answer versus some of the other plans that are based on multi-housing. And if ADUs are rented to family and friends, then it's the private property owner's option to do so. There's no indication if we build hundreds of ADUs throughout town that they will be rented to any particular group. And in fact, it's also frustrating because SB 9 and 10, which promote multiple units on single-family lots, and actually SB 9 has completely gotten rid of single-family zoning. In the case of 9 and 10, those don't even require affordable housing. So the state's done a really good job of confusing people and leading us astray and making us believe that we're all doing the wrong thing in every case, and I think we need to be really smart and focused and decide how to move forward appropriately and what makes sense to be able to offer more housing in Tiburon because we need it, but we don't need it with Scott Wiener's particular version.
Thank you. Thank you for behind the stop sign. Okay, so, Isaac, I'm going to get to the question. Do you support the use of ADUs as a substitute for multifamily housing?
So ADUs have traditionally been something that's used in our allocation of new housing for the town. So I do support the use of ADUs. I think, you know, it's these large housing numbers are not for small overbuilt jurisdictions where building is incredibly expensive due to steep hillsides and bedrocks at a deep depth, and the land is subject to sea level rise. I think, you know, transportation, again, like I said earlier, public transportation is on a fiscal cliff in this county. And our infrastructure is already incredibly overburdened. Tiburon Boulevard, you know, can't handle a 20% increase in traffic or a 15% increase in traffic. So, do I advocate for spreading out the units across the peninsula? Absolutely, I do. Do I think that that's a better solution than putting them in high traffic areas and on dangerous windy roads where, you know, ingress and egress are going to be incredibly difficult with a massive influx of people? Yeah, I think it's a much better plan to have that growth again spread out through the Tiburon Peninsula rather than sort of at these single points where they can cause a lot of damage and become a safety issue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're getting to the end. All right, well, Tiburon is, let's see, so Isaac, you are first here. Well, Tiburon is one of the safest cities in America. The police expanded their size and spending from a quarter to a third of the municipal budget in recent years. It's grown by 1.5 million in the past 5 years. But this year, the council deferred 1.25 million in road projects because of budget concerns, which is also a question here. Do you agree with that, and do you think that's justified?
So, I've looked at the budget. I was on that meeting, the town council meeting, where they deferred some of the, you know, I think it was a recent project on Eastview, or reduced the cost of a project on Eastview. You know, the fact of the matter is some things get more expensive over time. Tiburon Police is going to be more expensive over time. I think there are also other issues that have come up, like climate change, and do you continue to have gas-powered vehicles in the police force? We added a Tesla. There are other improvements like adding solar to Tiburon Police Department, other capital improvements that I think will pay off in the long run. I hope will pay off in the long run. So I think the spending that we've done on TPD was wise. I don't look at it as sort of an either or. I think you know, one of the core tenets of any town, whether it's the town council or town staff, is to make sure things are working correctly. And the road in question was graded a 28 out of 100. So that road massively needs repaving, and a lot of other roads in town do as well. So you know, I don't see it as an either or. I think town council in that case was reducing cost to make the project a little more budget friendly, but not at the cost of more money to TPD.
Thank you. Stefanie?
So I believe the question was, the cost for our police force has grown.
Well, the cost for paving has been
But
deferred.
yes, so the choice to honor the quotes for the paving unfortunately weren't. So the police department currently is fully staffed. to have a police force with an appropriate number of officers. Otherwise, we are at greater risk. And even though not a lot happens in this town, there is enough that happens. And I always appreciated the updates when we can see some of the major traffic stops and weapons and drugs and various things that they have managed to stop. When it comes to the paving, I was in that meeting, and I know that there was a lot of contention about whether to pay for all of the paving or to pay for part. And it was explained by one of the visiting, by someone that was one of the experts that was trying to implement the plan, and he said that Marin has lost a lot of the contractors, and costs have gone up at the same time by 30%. And so that if we don't pave the roads and pay for everything now, it's only going to get more expensive. And if I had been behind the dais that night, I would have voted for all the paving to be completed, because incrementally the cost is much higher the worse the roads get.
Thank you. Okay, coming into the home stretch. Pickleball. What should be done? That is the question. That is the question.
Pickleball, what should be done?
Is that an issue here?
Well, I know that people love pickleball, and I have talked to people at the park who are so passionate about it and say that they have a new friend community built around it, and I know people are building businesses around it, and it's not anything we can ignore and anything that should go away. But it is noisy, and it does impact people whose houses are near any of the courts where people play. And at the most recent town council meeting before the break, the one and only public speaker complained about buying his home recently, and there was just constant noise, and couldn't the town council please do something? So he was given some direction, town council members did return his email, and in that particular case, it's TPC, and they'll need to address the use of the pickleball courts as they proceed with their conditional use permit requests. There is supposed to be some sort of pickleball trial, and Post talked about that in one of their meetings, and it was supposed to have been implemented sooner, and then it was pushed back to the spring, and I don't think it has been implemented yet, and that was going to happen at the beach courts. And so if we have some sort of a trial, eventually we'll have a better understanding of how many people play and what the noise impacts are and what we need to do to further mitigate the noise so that everyone can enjoy the sport and enjoy the quiet of their home.
Okay, your thoughts on pickleball?
Pickleball. So my thoughts on pickleball are a matter of public record. On Post, we supported a 6-month trial in expanding pickleball use in Tiburon to the public parks and at Teether. And that was recommended to town council. Unfortunately, town council created an additional subcommittee to investigate our investigation and decided to also allocate additional funds to a second sound engineer. And unfortunately, that hasn't gone anywhere. So I think we're still waiting for town council to let us know their decision on our recommendation.
That I would have a regular newsletter that I would release so that people could keep up with what was happening. And in addition to any work done on town council, I think it's important for everyone to understand all of the various committees and other efforts that people make. Sometimes there are groups outside of even local government pursuing other interests they have and working with other nonprofits. But I think everyone should understand what we are doing and where we've been appointed and where we've been asked to work. And so I would have the newsletter available, and I would also recommend that as we upgrade our website, that each town council person would have real-time updates available. So instead of going to just a static photo and a blurb for each town council person, it actually could have usable information so that people could visit the website and actually use it and enjoy it and need it and get better information about what we are all doing. And something came up in an interview with the Marin IJ, and I wish I'd known that that Jack Ryan had been appointed to the Regional Bay RBRC and is on the board. I didn't even know that until I did more research because I didn't like my answer, and I found out. So we need more information about everybody.
Okay, last question, and you are first, Stefanie. Are there any areas in which you feel the town council has not been focusing that deserves more attention?
Well, I think to be fair, everyone is working as hard as they can because it is on a volunteer basis. But I think one thing that we really need more of is the whole disaster preparedness plan, and something that's actionable and something that people can really understand and know immediately who they should be reaching out to in each neighborhood. And I think that by having printed material as well as a yearly event, I think we can get much closer to affecting that challenge and really accomplish that. Because I know it's been talked about a lot in the past, but I think we really need to act on it, and I would like to commit to making sure that gets done.
Great. And how about you, Isaac?
It's an issue that was a question.
The question was, are there any areas in which you feel the town council has not been focusing that deserves more attention?
Absolutely. I think one of the examples is our Parks Master Plan. So this is one thing that we brought proactively as post to Town Council. We're looking forward to, I think, partnering with Town Council on this. I think also the other issues that I brought up earlier, where it's bringing back family-friendly events. I think it's reducing traffic. It's coming to completion on this housing element piece. It's improving public safety and education around safety. I think those are areas where I'd like to help Town Council focus on those. I don't just sort of bring problems. I'd also like to bring solutions and help the Town Council work on those. I think driving consensus and compromise are big pieces of solving those, and rolling up your sleeves, being proactive the way I've shown that I can be proactive in this town over the last 7 years is going to be an important piece of that. And I think also, being a friendly face that residents can meet with and talk about and ask questions to is also an important piece. Being there, listening, those are things that are also really important for Town Council members to be.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the question portion of this forum. And before the candidates make their closing statements, here's some useful information about the election. Your election day is Tuesday, August 29th. This is a vote by mail special election, so ballots will be mailed to voters starting on July 31st. If you wish to register to vote, or if you've moved and need to re-register, you may register online until August 14th. After that, you can register and vote at the county elections office. And now the candidates will make closing statements of 2 minutes. We'll go in reverse order of the opening statements. So we will start with Isaac NIkfar.
So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marin and the ARC. I believe that experience matters when choosing the next town council member. Town council member Alice Fredericks once told me that it's incredibly important that a town council member is a part of the community with volunteer experience, knows town issues, and has experience working with town staff and knowing how to get things done and solve problems in Tiburon, and I believe that's true. I've been endorsed by Mayor Jack Ryan, former mayor and current town council member Holly Thier, former town council member Noah Griffin, who recently stepped down and created this opening, former mayor Emmett O'Donnell, the entire Reed Union School District board, the majority of the Planning Commission, all of the Parks and Open Space and Trails Commission. California Assembly Member Damon Connolly has endorsed me. I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club, and over 250 Tiburon residents have endorsed me. I think it's incredibly important to understand that when we look at someone who has volunteered their time and given back to the community, I think the choice is clear. If we're looking at someone who engages and listens to the residents of Tiburon, the choice is clear. When we look at who has worked with town staff, town council to get things done with the boards and commissions within the town to get things done in Tiburon for the people of Tiburon, The choice is clear. Please come see me tomorrow at Cafe Cree from 9 to 11. I'll be there. We can talk about whatever you want to. I hope I've earned your vote, and I hope you all vote when the ballots come out next week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Stefanie?
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And thank you to the ARC. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. And I would like to emphasize that Tiburon can fully expect my participation as a council member to be at all meetings and to support and embrace ongoing committee work such as the ad hoc committee to implement the DITF strategic plan and to encourage the expansion of other group activities such as the disaster advisory committee so that our town has updated and readily available information and actionable resources to keep everyone safe, particularly for those aging in place. I am a newly installed member of the Tiburon Belvedere Rotary Club, so I am always trying to give back. And I'm also the treasurer for the neighborhood association for my neighborhood, which is Lyford Cove, Old Tiburon, otherwise known as the Cove now. And in addition, I have also appropriately and timely filed all of my campaign financial statements. And you can see a record of that on the town website. And in a recent conversation with Alice Fredericks, she has let me know that she does endorse me. And so I hope that you will all consider the conversation we've had tonight. Know that you do have plenty of time to reach out since the ballots are not due until August 29th. And I would look forward to speaking with everyone in more detail, especially for questions about all the housing, because I think that we have a lot of work to get through. And I think that it's really important to have everyone together as a cohesive group. And I look forward to serving all of you and to getting you there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the ARC and the Marin County League of Women Voters for making tonight's forum possible. And thanks to the candidates for participating, and to Elaine Biagini for timekeeping, and to Kevin Hessel and terrible with names, was it Stefanie?
Caroline.
Oh, for God's sake. Sorry for collecting and reviewing the questions. I have to write everything down. So thank you for joining us tonight, and most of all, thank you for voting. Good night, everyone.
So,